we'll discuss about something called methods. Okay, what are methods in Java? So when we discuss about a class, I said a class has two things. A class has something called attributes. Attributes are also known as fields, or also known as variables, right? And then apart from that, we said you can have actions on a class. Like just to reiterate, let's assume there's a class called car. Okay, so in Java you represent class within a bracket, within flower brackets. So I'm writing two flower brackets, and let's say what are the attributes? Let me list out some of the attributes on a car. So you will have string, you will have the name of the car, then you will have string make, right? Then you will have string model, etc., etc. And then we said car has certain actions that you can perform on a car. Like for example, I can say drive forward. I can say drive backward. So things that can operate on a car. So these are actions. Okay. So actions are known as methods. Methods in Java. These are called methods. So we all know that using programs you can perform certain computation. Right? For example, you can add two numbers, multiply two numbers, right? So far we have not discussed where we do computation in Java. So far we have been discussing about how do we represent real world objects in classes and how do we create objects out of those classes. Okay, so today we will discuss how to write logic in a program, how to do computation in a program. So the place in a Java program to write business logic or to write computation or sequence of instructions, right, is known as a method. Method is a place wherein you write pieces of instructions that the program will execute. Like for example, we have written a let me show you the first method that you have written in Hello World. This is called a method wherein the JVM is running this program and running the instructions inside this program. So the instruction was to print this word hello world. Okay, so this is known as a method. So methods are the where you write instructions in Java. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's write a bit more realistic example of a method which has instructions. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll create a class called calculator. Okay, let me just first check if there is a class. So I'll create a class called calculator. So we all know how to create a class. So I'll right click, new, others, and I'll select class. Next, I want to create a class called calculator. So I'll say calculator and finish. Okay. Now let's assume this calculator handles two numbers for now. Okay. So in Java, if you want to represent a number, you will use something called int. So I'll use a number called int. Okay, I'll use a int. The data type is int. I'll call this number underscore 1. Okay, and then I'll create another variable. These are called variables, right? I'll create another variable called number underscore 2. So now these variables are used to represent data, right? They cannot contain sequence of instructions. All they can contain is data. Now let's write certain actions. Certain actions or methods that you can perform on those two numbers. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll create another action, a variable called result. Okay. I'll say result, and I will write method here. So I'll discuss what I'm writing in a while. For now, I'll say add, public void add, I'll say add numbers. So as this is the name of the method. Okay. So what it does is it will result is equal to number underscore 1 plus number underscore 2. Okay, simple math. It is adding two numbers and assigning the data to result. Okay, whatever the value is there in number 1, it is adding that number 1, number 2, and assigning that to the variable called result. Simple method. Okay. Likewise, let's write another method called multiply. Multiply. Result is equal to number 1 into okay. So now let's run this program. To run a program, I need to have a, as I said, in order to run any sequence of instructions, you need to have a method. So I'll create a main method. Okay, we'll discuss more on what a main method is. So I'll create a main method, and here I'll create an object of this class. So I'll say calculator. The name of the, I'll say calculator reference. Now I'll create new calculator. So let me try to refresh your, what we discussed. How many objects am I creating here? How many objects did I create here? Very good. Okay, so I created one object. Now I'll give some values to this guy. Okay, calculator dot number 1 is equal to 10. Calculator 1 dot number 2 is equal to 20. Okay, so I added two numbers. Now I want to invoke, just like how I use object notation, I will use the same notation to invoke the method. So I want to invoke the add numbers method. So just like I'm accessing the variable using object dot, I can access the method in a similar fashion. So reference dot add numbers. Okay, what this will do, this will call the add numbers method, and it will add the number and assign that to result. Okay, so let's see if this is working. So I'll say if I want to print, I need to use system.out.println. Here result of computation is CACL dot result. Okay, so any guesses with the output number 23? No one wants to guess? It's simple. I'm calling the method called add numbers, right? And if I add number 1, number 2, what will be the result? Come on, that was a simple question. I'm adding 10 and 20. So the result will be 30, right? So the result is 30. What just happened? You created an object, you assigned the data to that object, and you invoke the method on that object. The method add number. So Java program runs line by line. Okay, when you run the program, it goes to the main method first. Then in the main method, it executes line after line. This line was to create an object. So it creates an object and assigns that to this particular reference. After that, the next line is to assign some data. So it will assign number 1, data 10. The next is to assign number to data 20, right? And then you're calling the method add numbers. So the control jumps to the add numbers method. And here you have a instruction. Number 1 underscore plus number 2, assign that to result. So this method execution finished. Then the control jumps back to here. The next line is to print. So here you are printing the result as whatever is completed. So in this case 10 plus 20. So the result is 30. Now the same thing I can say, instead of add numbers I want to say multiply numbers. Right? Instead of add numbers we are calling multiply numbers. I'll run the program. The result is 10 into 20, which is 200. Okay. So if you can see, just like how you can do actions, you can move forward, you can move backward, you can switch on indicator, you can switch on the engine, you can turn on the wipers. These are all different actions that you can perform on a class, on a car. Similarly, you can perform actions on a particular class using methods. So methods is the place where you will write your sequence of instructions. Okay. Whenever someone says, hey, I wrote a program, that means they wrote a program which does something, right? Simple example is it can be sorting numbers. So the logic or the place where you will write such a logic is the method. Okay. So any questions on what a method is all about? We'll discuss more on how to write a method, but do you guys understand what a method is and how to invoke a method? So Siddhartha, tell me what will be the output. The question is, I have a question there. Someone says there's a question is, what will happen if I call these two together? What will be the output? Come on, think about that. Any guess? Rachna?
Yeah.
If you want to speak, if you don't want to speak, please be on mute. Otherwise, you can unmute and speak. Okay. So, do you want to talk? Because I see you're not on mute.
Yeah, my mic is just enabled now.
Okay. I'll just unmute you.
Can you repeat the question once again?
Yeah, I'll just repeat that. So the question is, what will be the output of this program? I'm calling add numbers and I'm calling multiply numbers. So, and I'm printing the result. What will be the result? I'll give you A and B. A, will it be 30? B, will it be 200? Most of you are saying 200. Some of you are saying 30. Okay. Let's run. Let's run this and see. So the answer is 200. Why is it 200? The first method ran. You're calling the add numbers. So it went ahead and let me do one thing. What I'll do is I will print this after every method call. Okay. I'll print after add numbers and I'll print after multiple numbers. Then you will know. So the first value it printed 30 because this add numbers You call this method and it will assign the value of this 10 plus 20 to the result. And then you are calling multiply numbers. So multiply numbers gets called. So 10 into 20, 200 gets assigned to the same variable. The variable is getting overwritten, right? It's getting replaced. And when you print, you will get the whatever is the current value. So the current value is result of the multiplication. Okay, is that clear, everyone? Okay, let's move on. Now let's try to understand how to write methods. Okay, so a method has 4 parts. A method has 4 parts in it. Please pay attention to this. Okay, the first one is known as modifier. Okay, for now assume that this is always going to be public. Okay, first you need to start a method with the access modifier. For now assume that this is always going to be public. We'll discuss more about when we go through the topic of packages in Java. But up till then, every method just mark that method as public. So if you see in my case, I have 3 methods. Method called add number, method called multiply number, and a method called main. All 3 methods have access modifier as public. Okay. Next is something called return type. If this method is computing something and returning, if it is returning a value, you need to specify what kind of a data it is going to return. Okay. Let me show you. For example, I'll create another method called divide number. So as a public int divide number. Okay. Okay. So this is also a method. A method, as the name indicates, is going to divide numbers. So we are dividing 2 numbers and returning. You see the word return. Here we are returning the result. So going back to the method, number 2, you need to specify what kind of a data this method is returning. So in case of divide numbers, I'm saying I'm going to return a integer. I said division result is of type int. So I need to declare that what kind of a result my method is going to return. So that is number 2. And in case if your method is not returning anything, you need to mark it as void. Okay, void. So the English meaning of a void is nothing, blank, empty. Okay, so you need to specify void. If you don't specify void, you will get an error. You will get a compilation error. Return type of the method is missing. Okay, so void says there is no return value, empty, blank. Okay, so that is number 2. The third comprises of 2 parts. Number 3 comprises of 2 parts. The first is the name of the method. In this case, the name of the method is divide numbers, multiply numbers, add numbers, main. These are all the names of the method. Anything after the return type is the name. Okay. After name, you have brackets. If you see, I have brackets. So to a program, I can pass input. I can feed in input. Like for example, in this case, I'm saying, hey method divide numbers, you take these two numbers, you accept these two numbers as input, divide the number and give me the result. Okay. So if your method is accepting any input, you need to declare them here within the brackets. If your method is not accepting, then you just put empty brackets. Okay. So you see my multiply numbers is not accepting any data, any input parameters. This is known as input parameters, params in short, parameters. Okay. So these are known as input parameters. So if your method is accepting an input parameters, you need to declare just like a variable. How you declare a variable? Remember, here we are passing data to a method, right? And data can only be captured in a variable. So here you need to declare a variable. Okay. So when you invoke this method and pass the data, the data gets assigned to this particular variables. Like for example, if I want to call this divide number method, this is what I have to do. Divide number. I want to divide, let's say 20, we already have 20, let's say 45 by 9. So you see, I am passing the data directly to this method, 45, 9. So what happens, this 45 gets assigned to the first variable, and we have a comma. Then the second data, this gets assigned to the second variable. Okay, so this is known as parameters. So number 3 constitutes of name of the method and the parameters it is accepting. Okay. Then there is something called throws clause. This is optional, and this is part number 4. So for now, ignore this. For now, assume that method contains 3 parts. Modifiers, which is always public. The second thing is you need to specify the type of the data that the method is returning. And if it's not returning anything, you specify void. Then the third thing, which is very, very main important thing, the most important thing is number 3, which constitutes of 2 things, the name and the parameters it is accepting. Name and parameters. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, very good. So now we are calling this thing, right? Let's try to see if the method is working. So I'll say integer division result is equal to, print this. Result of division is, okay, that's the result. Now when I run this program, this particular line should print 5. Right, so I printed 5. So what happened? It divided those two numbers and returned the division result. So the division result, this method returned, and we are capturing that in a variable called division result here. Let's say, okay, just to make sure this is different, division answer. Okay, so I'm capturing the whatever this method has returned in a variable called division answer, and I'm printing that. Okay. Any questions on what I just did? How to define a method? How to call a method? Any questions on that? Is that clear? Okay. So let's do one thing. Let's try to add some methods. Okay. What do we do? So who can explain? One question is, what is this division answer? Can anyone explain? What is this division answer? Would anyone want to try? Very good. So this division answer is nothing but a variable that we have declared to hold the answer of divide numbers. Whatever divide numbers is returning, it will hold that, whatever the data that this guy is returning. Okay, so it holds in this particular variable. Is that clear? Okay, fine. Now I want help from you. I want help from you guys in let's say in designing methods. Okay, let's do one thing. Let's create some real world example. Let's say I'll create a package called, create a class called bank account. Create a class called bank account. Okay. So there's another question, sir. Is it reference parameter or variable? Reference parameter. I'm not sure what is a reference parameter is. A parameter is only applicable to a method. Okay. And this is also a variable, but it's just that I'm calling that as a parameter because you're sending input to this method. Okay. Now here, this is not an input. It is just a variable that is used to capture the response. Okay. Now let's assume I want to create a bank account class. Can you tell me what should be my instance variables? What should be my variables here? What should be my variables of this bank account class? So just create 3 for now and let's say balance. Okay. We declare the methods. Now can you tell me what should be the methods? What actions can I do on a bank account? And I want you to provide me the syntax. Okay. What I'll do is I'll copy paste this syntax here. I want you to specify what should be my method. What action can I perform on a bank account and tell me the syntax. Siddharth, I want you to specify the entire syntax. So I'll give you a tip. So let's say, public. First thing is public. Okay. And let's say we want to deposit. So I'll say int deposit. And I want to accept. I need to accept something, right? I want to deposit. So this is my method. Now here what I'll do, return balance equal to balance plus amount to deposit. I'm declaring the balance. Okay. What else? Any other method that you can think of? Is that the only action that you can perform on a bank account? Okay, I'll just click withdraw deposit. We can do withdraw, so I'm not going to write that. And another thing is, let's say get balance. Okay, so these are the different methods that you can write on a particular class. I want you to take an exercise. Okay, I want you to create a class called student and provide methods to assign marks for different subjects. Like, set marks for science, set marks for social. Okay, I want you to provide those methods. And you are students, right? So you know better than me. Let's assume you're trying to design a class which represents yourself. Think about that and specify what actions can I perform on a student. So specify all those actions and write the logic there. Can you guys do that? Okay. Let's move on. And so we know now what is a method, and we know how to write method and how to return a value inside a method. Okay. Next, very, very important thing is something called method signatures. Okay. Before that, in order to run a program, in order to run any program, you need to have a main method. A main method which looks exactly like this. Even if you don't specify, any word, you will not be able to run a program. Like for example, if I have to run this, I can do two ways. One is click on this, or I can right click and say run as Java application. Two options. Now what I'll do is I'll take out this word called static. Currently I did not specify static here. Ignore that for now. We'll discuss more about that later. But the main method, I took out the word called static. If I try to go run, I'll not see that option. Earlier I was seeing this run as Java application. Now I don't see that option. And if I try to run this, I'll get a method. I'll get an error saying that the main method is not static. Okay. So in order for you to run a program, you need to specify a method called main. And this method has to be designed in exactly, it has to be written exactly in this fashion. Okay. Even if you specify a different name, for example, I'm saying mains, and if I try to run, my program will not run. Okay. So the main method has to be exactly looking like this. Okay. Why it should be like that and all, I'll talk. I'll speak about that later on. Okay. But for now, for all your programs, just write them, copy paste this exactly like this. Okay. Now let's discuss about something called signature. Okay. Who can explain what a signature is? Forget about Java and all those things. What is the importance of a signature? Why does bank use a signature? What is so important of signature? What, I got only two answers. Others have no clue why you are signing inside a bank. What is the importance of a signature? Can two people have the same signature? Right. So a typical, when I say signature, what comes to my, to at least my mind is, it is something that that is unique, right? That is why banks want signatures. No two people can have the same signature. Now, if you forge, that's a different story altogether. But as a general tendency, signatures are supposed to be unique. Okay. Now let's apply that logic. Let's apply that logic to this word called method signature. Okay. What do you think a method signature means? You know what a signature is. It is used to uniquely identify something. So what do you think a method signature means? When I say a method signature, what do you think it is? Read them slowly. Method signature. A person signature. When I say person signature, what does that mean? Okay. So it's very, very simple, right? As a signature used to identify uniquely, a method signature is to uniquely identify a method, right? Method signature is to uniquely identify a method. Now, why is that important? Let me show you. I'll remove all those things. Just you all understand these things now. How to put that. Now, when I run this program, what will the output? Can anyone guess? Will it print 30 or will it print 60? See, I have two methods with the same name, add numbers. Both are adding numbers. Now I am sending in the first, for the first, okay, sorry. Now here I am calling the add numbers and passing some two parameters. What will happen? Will it add 10 plus 20 or will it add 50 plus 10? Very good. So all of you said 60. Okay, let's see. Let's run this and see. So the answer is 60. Okay, very good. That means Java somehow identified that, hey, I need to invoke the second method. I don't have to invoke the first method, I need to invoke the second method. So how did it identify? Even though there are two methods with the same name, how did it uniquely identify that it has to call the second method and not the first method? Can you explain? It is very, very simple. Okay, so I'll tell you. Here, there's something called method signature. A method signature constitutes of the number 3 part. Number 3 is what constitutes a method signature. Okay, so in this case, number 3. So a combination of the name of the method and the parameters it is accepting is what constitutes a method signature. That means you identify a method uniquely using the name of the method and the parameters it is accepting. So if you see in this case, I have a method called add numbers, methods with the same names. The first method is not accepting anything. The second method is accepting two integers, int, int. So the signature of this method is okay. Now the signature of the method is add numbers. The names of the variables is not part of the signature. The part of the signature is the name of the method and the type of the variables. Okay, as I said, number 3. Okay. Now let me add another method here. Okay. Void add numbers. Int num1, int num2, int num. Okay. So can you tell me what is the signature of this method? I know it is the method name and int comma int. So this is the signature of this particular method. Okay. Now, when you try to invoke a method, Java, what it will do, it will try to find out a method with this particular signature. In this case, the method is add numbers and one that is accepting two integers. So it uniquely knows that there is a method with this signature, a method which is accepting two integers. So it knows that it has to, out of these three methods, it knows which method to call. Okay, is that clear, everyone? Okay, now let's assume I have a question here. Let's have 90 plus 1, comma 0. Which method will get called? My second method or my third method? Okay, correct. As most of you guessed, it will be the third method. So let me run this and show you that it is in fact computing the result. So the result is 100, and if I pass like 10, I should get 110 here. 110 because it checks the signature of the method, and the signature of the method is any method called add numbers which is accepting 3 integers. So it goes here and invokes this particular method. Okay, so this is known as method signature. Okay, and the reason this is important is I cannot have two methods with the same signature. Right, just like in the real world, we cannot have two people with the same signature. I cannot have two methods with the same signature. For example, if I copy paste, get error, duplicate method, and take a look at the error. Duplicate method, and it shows you the signature of the method. Add numbers int comma int. Okay. Now, for example, I will say this is num a comma num b. Okay. I changed the parameter names. Here it was num1, num2. I changed this to num a and num b. But still I am getting error because the names of the parameters is not part of the signature. What is part of the signature is the type. My name of the method and the type of the parameters. Okay, this is what is known as method signature. Is that clear, everyone? What is method signature?